Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to I Command. We are here again. This is TV Boy, your host, and I am joined by special guests once again, Morgan and Carson Gee. Guys, thanks for coming on the show to talk. We're gonna talk about season 4 here.
Thanks for having us.
Right.
Yeah,
Let's get
so
into it.
let's get into it. Just kind of a brief what we're going to be doing here. So if, this is going to be kind of like a farewell show, a summary show of like kind of like a sunset show for season 4. For those that are Magic players, you might be that listen to limited resources might be familiar with this format. We're just going to kind of talk about experiences with season 4, how it went, and then we'll do some really quick kind of like season 4 card awards that I came up with for cards in season 4 that Morgan and Carson will talk about. So Morgan and Carson, you guys have been playing on a lot of tournaments in season 4, right? Why don't you guys talk? Just kind of give a general overview of your kind of sense of how the format's been this season. Do you want Carson? You want to go first?
Sure. I thought the format was pretty good. This is kind of my first experience with any like online gaming tournaments, so the community's great. I've had a lot of fun, kind of sparring, for lack of a better term, with the other players. Tournaments are well run. Everyone, it seems to go. It's more than I could have asked for, really. So that's basically all I have to say there.
Carson, what kind of like lists and figures have you been playing with and against, or seeing out there?
I've been playing. I won one of the tournaments with my Jedi Smuggler list, with Ahsoka and Han and Jared. There was a little bit of discussion around how Jared is underplayed, and you don't normally see many lists with him in it, so it was fun to kind of win with a list with him in it. I definitely realized there was a lot of scum hunter lists that was mainly what I found I was playing a lot against, and yeah, there's also a bunch of rebel lists and Jedi. Always playing Kyle's Jedi list was always fun to play against.
That's interesting. So Morgan, how about you? How's season 4 been for you, and what have you been playing and seeing out there?
So I started out with brawlers, a lot of brawler focus. I'll tried them all out extensively with some mid-cost rebel brawlers bringing into scum. I had some success there, and then when the maps rotated, and we got the longer range upper base came in. I started playing more. I still played some brawler lists with Arcan and the Child, but then I also played in this most recent tournament. I played a Han Smuggler box. Yeah, brawlers and smugglers. Lots of rebels.
Yeah, and you mentioned the map rotation, so I think that's probably important to mention is so season 4 approved play, basically the tournament season started I think November 3rd, and then I think we had a few tournaments. I think the Jetpack Cup was during that period, and then I think at the end of November, so like the 30th, we had a map rotation where we lost Endor Defense Station and rotated out for Chopper Base Adelon. So how has the map rotation changed? Like how would you compare the first half of the season to the second half where we had Chopper Base?
The first half was a lot of melee lists. There were a lot of Vader lists, a lot of close range like Trando lists, it's some Jedi lists, and a lot of brawlers being played, especially with the new Guardian cards, and the sort of close up apps lent themselves to that style of gameplay. And then when the maps changed, you lost Andor Defense Station, which, although is large, is sort of it gets to close quarters rather quickly, and I would still classify that as a small map, just in terms of where the actual gameplay happens. And that went out of rotation, and in came Chopper Base, which feels much larger. You saw less and less. Like I don't think I saw a single person running Maul in that last tournament, in the Pro Bird Cup, and it was a lot more the ranged figures. Scum Hunters started to see more of appearance.
I think Spies also made a creep into the after the map switch as well. I found at least there was a lot more Spies being played.
Yeah, so Maul was kind of a big one. We saw a ton of Maul the early in the season, and then after the rotation, he kind of dropped off pretty hard. Although I think he made a reappearance towards the end of the season, but not quite as strong as in the beginning. And yeah, I also sensed kind of the stark change that you guys mentioned after the rotation, which we had kind of been noticing that the melee brawler lists had been getting a real bump and were really dominating the range list, and we realized the map rotation was having a big impact on that. So Chopper Base was a selection that we thought would be not super advantaged towards range figures, but a lot more balanced than Endor, because ISB has kind of become the last holdout now for melee figures that they really have a strong advantage on, because Coruscant Senate Office that rotated in before is a little bit more slanted towards range figures, although Battle at Dawn, that gives that huge range penalty, can be pretty good for melee attackers if they can get in quickly. What's it been like playing on the Coruscant Senate Office map? Because I think that rotated in with Season 4 at the beginning of the playtest season, so that's pretty new to the format.
Karsh, you want to take this one?
Sure. I found that with that map in particular, you really had to focus on positioning wise, and it was kind of like you're playing chicken with your partner, who wanted to duck out first with one of their figures, get in there and essentially start the carnage. So it was kind of risky with trying to make range or not, and you didn't want to leave too many of your figures exposed. So I found it most of the time when I played on a map like that, it was, test the waters a little bit, hang back until you see an opening.
I found I had a lot more success with that map later on. Like I sort of had to learn it. Initially, I think it was a game I played against Isaac, and playing against his Han Rangers list, there was just no way I was doing anything. I had a bit of a discussion about him, and we talked about how picking the side of the map, not just the top or bottom, but the left or right, big difference depending on whether you have melee or ranged. And I sort of tailored my list more to include some faster moving figures so that I could sort of take advantage of whatever side wasn't being used. I could sort of hide my figures here in an advanced position. And I found I had a lot more success there as I started to solve that map.
Yeah, particularly with your Arcan and the Child. I remember playing you, Morgan, and you tucked those figures around the right side of the map and basically jumped on my Jabba in my deployment zone. So it was, being able to have figures to move the distance and stay protected is important on that map.
Nice. Yeah, actually, I wrote like a whole long script about that map to make into a video, and then I just never was able to do it because of the baby and stuff. I just didn't have time. But yeah, that's a really, that map has a pretty steep learning curve.
I didn't like it initially, and now it's probably my favorite one to rotation, to be honest.
There was a bit of a controversy too with the senator mission. People were kind of grumbling a little bit that the senators really accelerate the game to a point where you only really have to get a couple of kills, and then the game just kind of ends with the big 15 point or 15 plus like 20 something point swing from the senators leaving the building.
Maybe, but I think I think good players will find ways of managing that. I know when I was playing against Kyle, he basically set up his Jedi box so that he he wreaked havoc with Luke, and then basically spent the rest of the game just killing my smugglers or killing my senators.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there was no way that I could come back, and he just needed to get there. So I think there is a specific time where you do need to start targeting senators if it's the best way forward, because you can deny a lot of those points and make the game go longer um, if you pick the right times to manage those.
Nice. Carson, any thoughts on the senator mission?
I totally agree with Morgan, and it you can't get caught up when trying to take out the other person's figures to get yourself points, but you also need to worry about keeping your opponent from scoring victory points from the senators. So, and as far as the learning curve is concerned, I still don't think I have fully grasped that map to the best of my ability. I haven't played it enough, but something to work on for sure.
Yeah, the line of sight angles on that map are very tricky and pretty deceptive too, as far as what's safe and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's move on to what faction did the best overall for season 4, and we could also talk about which one did the worst too. So, what do you guys think about which faction how the factions did in season 4?
But the eye test or the data driven answer.
Like your perception.
Okay, so I seem to see a lot of, at least in tournaments I was a part of, it seemed like Rebels and Scum seemed to win the majority of them. Although you did have like Jake won a tournament with a Vader list and um, ended up playing just the most recent one. I played against um, Blades Sentry Swarm.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple of Imperialists, but they seemed to be not as popular or didn't do as well as some of the Rebels and Scum.
What do you think, Carson?
I agree. Most of the time when I was playing, it was either against scum hunters or your standard rebel Jedi based brawler lists, except kind of towards the end of the season. So I noticed a more rebel and scum or a combo of the two, like including some figures of each faction into those lists, and those were the ones that tended to take the cake.
How about, did we see more diversity within the factions than we've seen before? Or has it kind of been the same archetypes we saw in the previous seasons?
Do you think, Curse?
Well, a lot of the lists center around having 3PO and R2 in them a lot of the time, or Gideon. So whether it's a scum list or a rebel list, you're usually going to build it around those support characters. But I only came into this community in season 4, so I don't really know if you're meaning from between season 3 and season 4. I can't really speak too much regarding that. But there was some crossing of the figures. Like
I felt like there weren't a ton of new archetypes so much as there were just variations on old archetypes. Like you saw some Scum Hunters lists with Mando and Claudite instead of your traditional like Gideon and IG-88. And then you have, like, Kai always seems to bring something ridiculous that ends up being super strong, like his Boba and the Jets, which he's been playing for a bit now. The Jake played his Vader Palthron, but with Maul added. So it was more of the same, but with a twist, with the new figures added. Which honestly is fine, I think.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you guys. It's kind of been, we've seen a lot of the old standouts staying good, and then just the new stuff kind of added for spice. Some more interesting archetypes I've seen have been actually Kyle's ISB Death Trooper Suppressive Fire list that he played in one of the Jetpack Cups was really cool, because the way he used it, like he would use the ISB to attack with a Death Trooper, and then the Death Trooper would move the ISB up with Suppressive Fire so the ISB could attack too, without having to take a move action, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, I pretty much agree with you guys on that one. Let's see. How about let's do some card by card. So, or some kind of awards. What was the biggest? Or excuse me, we're still in the season 4. What was the biggest shakeup you think for the meta from season 3 to season 4? And I guess Carson, since you started in season 4, this would be more for Morgan. But Morgan, what did you see that changed? Probably the biggest change from 3 to 4.
Well, the thing that comes to mind is in season 3, there were a lot of with Royal Guards, and there's a lot of defensive stacking happening. I was running a 4-act Weiss list, which I had a lot of fun with. And I sort of retired it after that season, after I realized how much they got boned by stun. So it seemed like there was a lot of stun and a lot of defensive stacking in season 3. And then with season 4, it felt like those things didn't. I mean, obviously the Royal Guards were nerfed, probably possibly too much, probably too much, in my opinion. They also sort of phased out with the map rotation as well. And I didn't see, I guess, as many heavy vehicles as we saw in season 3. So I know season 3 brought with it the Imperial retrofitting, which was a really fun attachment and opened up a new avenue of gameplay. But I don't know if people just got tired of it or found that the new brawlers were sort of kicking their asses or whatever. I don't know.
Weiss was conspicuously absent from a lot of season 4 like competitive play, and he was a big deal in season 3. He saw a lot of success with Imperial retrofitting. And then I forgot to mention the Royal Guards got nerfed at the beginning of season 4, so that was bound to change. And then the Knowledge and Defense also got nerfed to lose the white dice, so people couldn't spam white dice with them. I was disappointed that people didn't give the Royal Guards a second chance. The the problem with them in season 3 was just that evade really was the big problem, and we saw that with even your games, Morgan. with Vader against the Royal Guards, just not being able to do any damage with these huge heavy hitters like Vader. It's like the rest of the meta didn't stand a chance against them to deal damage. But ultimately, I think it was for the best because it was getting really frustrating for people. Yeah, how about let's do this. We'll go into the single card stuff right after we do this. What's something you've learned about Imperial Assault as a game from playing Season 4?
Of course, since Season 4 was sort of your start,
Yeah.
why don't you start it? What did you learn?
Well, there's a lot to this game. You can dive into trying to build your list from scratch, or you can kind of follow along with the IACP community and search Slack for potential builds that other people have found success with, and it allows you to kind of dive into a realm where you can try different things, or go with what you know is good based on others' opinions. So I found that I was being new to the game. I would try building a list or two and then kind of sending it to Morgan to look over, and he'd be like, don't use this card, it's terrible. I was like, okay, that's good feedback. Thank you. So I found that the overall community and this game in general was a lot of fun to be part of, and the community is inclusive, as we've been seeing a few more people joining the Slack, and a few new faces to the tournaments, which is always a good thing to see.
It's a great community. Really, really fantastic. And I know for a fact that if you guys hadn't continued on with the IACP, that community that we had that was running online would not be really the same. I think it would have petered out and died by now. So it's been thank you to all the steering committee. But it's just, this has been sort of like an escape and a safe haven from the scariness of real life. So thank you for that, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see the game continuing to thrive, no matter who's at the helm.
I guess my big takeaway is not to underestimate 2 dice figures. I remember when Jin Urso first came out, and I was like, man, she's got 2 dice. And I think it was actually Noah, who's just like, guys, like, try her out. And I did. And I'm like, wow, she does a lot of work. A lot more work than I thought she was capable of. And it's going to be one of the figures that I keep coming back to and keep trying to add into lists. She's just a lot better than I think people give her credit for.
Yeah, Jyn Erso is a undersung workhorse. She does a lot for the 7 points. And it's funny, we're getting that kind of the same reaction to Season 5 to people looking at Davith, and I'm just like, just wait until you get wrecked by Davith. But that's for the next video. We'll talk about Season 5 in just a sec. Alright, so let's go into some Season 4 card, what do they call these in your books? Superlatives. Let's do these. These are fun. So I'll ask you both a card. So let's do, what was the most overrated Season 4 card? Carson, what was yours?
I'd say probably Loku for me. He can deal out a little bit of damage, or like some damage if he's attacking, his priority target, or sorry, the one he set his sights on. With when he gets focused when attacking the guy with the recon
token. Yeah.
So yeah, he can, deal some damage, but I found most often in order to get him to a position to attack that player, he'd be out in the open. And even though you can use him to see through figures, it, with the 4+ accuracy, it's like you're without a reroll, you're hoping that you roll something good on blue. So I just found that I could never really get Loku to work well for me.
I mean, Loku was everywhere too. Like so many lists had Loku in it, and I don't think he's a bad figure at all. I think he's a good figure, but I think that he was maybe overplayed compared to especially like some of the figures that came out that I think didn't get as much play that we'll talk about in a sec. That I think are probably at least equal on equal footing as him and didn't see as much play. For me, my most overrated card would probably be Trandoshans, which part of that's due to the nerf. I know they were really scary when they had that recover, but I sort of found that they have the potential to whiff too, especially against like real tough targets. If you're playing against a lion ambush list, there's as long as you don't wait around, like as long as you don't have like Jabba chained to your deployment zone, it's not the hardest thing to avoid as long as you're like aware of where everything is. So I would say Trandoshans, which are strong, but I don't think as strong as credit for.
Mainly, you're using them to deal out strain because their blue-green doesn't do a whole lot, especially on figures that have like free evades or free blocks.
Yep, and I actually really agree with the Loku one. It's funny because I specifically made sure or wanted to make sure that Loku wasn't better than Jin Odan for 5 points because I think Jin Odan is like quietly one of the best figures in IACP that doesn't get that hasn't caused any problems, thankfully. But I was like, don't make it stronger than Jin, and then people were just like running Loku in every list possible with a 5-point gap in it, and I was just like, why are you not running Jin instead? you have no hunters in your list, and you're running Loku. But anyway, so yeah,
it's a spy flavor, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so let's kind of move through these. We'll go through these pretty quick. How about the card that enabled the most new strategies?
Did you want to do underrated?
We did. Oh, I skipped underrated. Excuse me. So, what's the most underrated season 4 card? Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. For me, it's the Child, Clan of Two. Like I really felt like, it just made Garkan so good and so dangerous and scum. If you were able to bring him over, attach the Child to him, because he constantly needs that healing and removal of conditions. And being able to play Get Behind Me with a Child just was so nice. So I would say Clan of Two. I think people were scared to try the Child because it's not a very straightforward card. But give it a chance, particularly on a figure like Garkan, who just loves to get in the action and take damage and strain, and I can just heal it with the Child. Give it a go. The other card I'd say is Jin. I feel like I mentioned earlier that the 2 dice figure is underestimated always. Another figure that's a little bit hard to use effectively, but she does a lot of work. Give her a shot.
All right, what about you, Carson?
I think the ATRT was a little bit underrated. I liked using the ATRT a lot, and I didn't see very many people use it much. Like swapping in a red die for one of your other dice is, quite important, and with a reroll as well, and then good surge abilities. He just, I think it should have gotten more play than it did, but that's just me.
Nice. I totally agree with those. Yeah. All right. So back to the other one. What card enabled the most new strategies?
For me, I saw a lot of like Imperial leaders with squad support. So I saw a lot of Soren lists that were or Krennic lists where they'd have those leaders with one of those two leaders with um, advanced comms, and then they just sort of give an aura or abilities to the troops to make the troops around them better. Um, and I felt like we hadn't seen a ton of that since Kane got initially up to 6, Kane Somos, before he got brought back up. So it was kind of nice to see as an archetype, apart from um, one stun list, one stun sentries with Soren list that I played against a lot in our local meta, which is not as fun. Yeah, that was probably so between Krennic and Soren, just giving that list archetype a little bit more legs. That was probably a big one for me.
Nice. What do you think,
You,
Carson?
I think Darksaber Maul. There was a lot of lists that were kind of built around him. That extra attack, makes him, I think, made him play more, and it made him a lot more scary than he was before. Getting 2 focused attacks in each turn. So, I found there was a lot of times where lists were built around him, or worked in creating a list where you could fit the 7 points to get Maul in there.
All right.
Yeah, I also felt like the mortar added something new. Like maybe had a little bit more impact than the E-webs on like sort of like stationary guns. It felt like that added something interesting and new, even if it didn't get played as much as the season wore on.
All right. So let's move on. What was the most interesting designed season 4 card from just like a design perspective, or like not necessarily what was the strongest?
Chris, what do you think?
Sorry, what was the question? I was looking back at the notes, and I noticed also Lion Ambush Trandos was one that also added a new like with the Trando work.
Oh yeah, I saw
it added a different
ton of Lion Ambush in season 4. That a card that has seen almost no competitive play.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the most interesting design from season 4?
I think for me it was Lando. He was pretty like his mechanic was very interesting in the fact that you could double or even like double his dealing damage and whatnot, and or defense. It was really cool to really gamble on what you could either prevent or deal. And yeah, I liked Lando. He was cool.
I really agree with that. Lando was felt like all of his mechanics sort of felt made him feel like a riverboat gambler, which sort of unsurprising that he didn't get featured in many lists in the tournaments, just because he is a riskier play. He's very strong, and I just felt like he was a lot of fun. Like all of his mechanics felt bonkers in a good way. That's probably mine. I also feel like the order again was just a really good, particularly as we tweaked it and made it a little bit more effective. Something that it was really cool having an artillery piece in Imperial Assault.
The mortar.
Not a mortar.
Yeah.
It did feel like artillery in the best way I guess it could in a game type like this. So it felt like it was a really strong theming for a unit that I wasn't sure. Like if you were to tell me a few months ago that we'd have a mortar an Imperial Assault, I might not have been able to imagine it.
Yeah. All right, great. So Lando and the mortar. All right, so okay, this next category is something I stole directly from limited resources. This is the Groan test. So what is the card that was the most frustrating to play against? So every time it was played against you, is just so frustrating. And try to go easy on the salt on this one, guys.
Knowledge and defense was mine.
Well, that was season 2, so I didn't make that one.
Still,
I found playing with against Jedi lists with Yoda and knowledge and defense was just a lot for me.
Okay, I did design that part of Yoda, so I'll take that one. That's what Jedi do.
Test. For me, I mean, playing against knowledge and defense and seeing it get played 5 times against you in a match was pretty groan-inducing. So it's not a new mechanic; it's just one that has persisted as that list archetype has gotten more support.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, like just my same old gripes with Son of Skywalker and less so Blaze of Glory now that IG isn't played as much, but like just seeing those guys in lists just always makes me groan because there isn't a ton of counterplay options for that. And I would say probably Strat Shift too is one that it's like it never feels good having to throw 8 cards back into your deck.
I know a lot of people probably still dislike Thrawn being in the opponent's list with all of the janky command card stuff that he can do. I'm sure that playing against him is more frustrating than playing with him.
All right. Well, no season 4 card, no Groan tests in season 4, so that's good. All right. Well, next one. What was a bad card that was still fun to play? And I'll say that, not all cards can be the best, and sometimes there are bad cards, and that's okay, because sometimes they're fun to play. So
I'd say Pathfinders is what comes immediately to mind. In none of my tournaments did I play with Pathfinders, but I found that I played them a lot when I was playtesting and when I was playing in my local meta, just because they're just super annoying for opponents to deal with. And although they aren't super good, just being able to mess around with their deployment order is a lot of fun. Like I delayed Luke being able to activate in a few games that I played, and that made me feel really good. Yeah, Pathfinders for sure.
What about you, Carson?
It could just be me, but the eWeb engineers with Overwatch, they were easy to counter against. So I found that they could. I never really got them to work before. Like I couldn't get the 5-point or 6-point value out of them with them and the Overwatch. So not that they're bad, but it could just be a learning curve. And easy for good opponents to counter against. So
okay, and then what card, season 4 card, did you wish you had played more games with?
I never played with I never gave the mortar a try. Shores and mortar I never really tried. So that would be something that I would play. Or should have played, and probably will give a try in the future.
I wish I was also inspired by Kyle's use of ISBs, and I wish that I had played more games with them. 'Cause they seem like such a neat little group, like a very like high sort of ceiling of what you can do with them. And that like there's a lot of shenanigans you can do with setting up other people to take shots. Um, so that's something I wish I'd given a go, more of a go.
Okay, and then let's finish this off with. Let's actually talk about kind of the big elephant in the room for season 4 for a lot of people was Maul. So we don't have a ton of time, but I just want to let you guys talk about Maul if you want to, kind of put the nail in this coffin on the discussion. Was Maul too good, or was it something else? Was it the players using him, or the map rotation that was making him so good, or is he just broken?
First, you want to start?
No, you go ahead. I'll add.
So I think that like long answer, or I guess sorry, short answer. No, I don't think he's overpowered. I think he's very strong. I think he's significantly less strong with the big maps that we have, and I think that the next time we have a smaller map rotating in, you'll again see him. You'll again see him um, start to dominate some more. He's slow. He's really slow, and he doesn't have a ton of defensive capability. Um, but he just does a lot of damage. And as long as you can manage him and be aware of him and try to focus him down before he tears through your list, um, you can absolutely deal with him. Like, I definitely didn't feel with him. I never felt the same way. I never felt helpless like I did against the junk guards list. I never like with the junk guards, it was like, okay, so not only can I do no damage, I'm also taking ridiculous amounts of damage back from figures that are half the cost of my figure. Um, and with Maul, he's got the damage, but you can kill him in 2 shots, and in most cases.
I agree with Morgan. He, yes, he as he said, he's a very strong figure and can deal out a lot of damage, but doesn't have much defensive capability. The catch 22 though is that he can't die until he activates. So getting him in and to the box and some lists and just wreaking hamac and then laying dying lunge, yeah, it could be it's frustrating, but it's Maul. He thematically that was kind of what he did. So I don't think he was too strong.
All right. Well, that's the last word on Maul. Debate over. So, everybody, thanks for watching. I'm glad we got to do the send-off show for season 4. I hope we get to do it again and have just as many nice things to say about season 5 when we get to that point. So yeah, everybody, thanks for watching, and make sure to check out the next video. We're going to talk about season 5 and some issues, the issues and the excitement around season 5 now that the full spoiler is out. All right, I'm going to hit